MZTV.
Welcome to Friday, everyone. I am Martin. Well, I didn't invent Friday. How audacious to say welcome to Friday. It's not my responsibility. I didn't come up with this day. Let me say welcome to this Friday edition of MZTV. Rough start here today, but nothing like yesterday. I'm going to tell you about yesterday. It'll be spiritually instructive, I think. Welcome to old and new viewers. I'm not talking about age here. I'm talking about how long you've been watching this channel. For those who don't know it, I have done a total commentary on the book of Revelation, and you can find that at my homepage. Some people don't realize this. Go to martinzender.com, and you scroll down a little bit, you'll see Zender on Revelation. I recorded 800 shows between 2014 and 2016, I believe, maybe 2017, on the book of Revelation. Didn't skip one verse. Some expositors, they kind of skirt around the tough issues, not me. I go for all of it. The truth is just as relevant today as it was when I recorded it, of course, because it's biblical truth. So if you're interested in that, just want to make you aware of it. When you click on the link at the top of the link page, when you go to my homepage, martinzender.com, click on the Zender on Revelation. Then at the top of that page, you'll see archives. You click that and all the shows show up in one nice handy lineup. You can scroll down, look at the title, see a title that you like. Or if you're like some hardcore people out there, start with show number 1 and just go through them all. That is, if you don't get enough of me here, and there's plenty of me there. So yesterday's show. I really liked yesterday's show when I saw it myself as I was editing it. It was a hard edit because so many bad things happened during that show. Let me explain that to you. You know, my voice was already shot towards the beginning of the show, and you see me say on the show, but luckily I brought almond milk to my desk. Well, no, I had not brought almond milk to my desk, so I had to get up during the show, left the camera rolling, went and got some almond milk, came back. Oh, here's my almond milk. What do you know? And the next thing that happened was I was looking for the verse in Ezekiel 28 that used the word created. And I'm looking for it, can't find it. The film is running, the film, expensive, these big, giant film canisters and everything. So I stopped the whole production, and it really ticked me off. And then as I'm looking for the word, I realized, man, I really have to take a pee. This almond milk's getting to me. So I get up and I trip over my computer cord and my light cord. Everything goes kafloozy, and I cursed a Cephas-like curse. And it was just so bad. And this was at the beginning of the show, and I was in such a foul mood from that point forward that when I sat down to edit the show, I thought, oh my God, this is going to be a wreck. And what to my wondering eyes should appear but a composed man expositing on the scriptures with grace, humor, and intelligence. And I said to myself, where did this guy come from? What? I couldn't believe it. It's a God thing. It was a layman walking type of miracle. So I thank God for yesterday's show. If you haven't seen it, check it out. I've been talking about Satan, the creation of Satan. I want to set everyone at ease that Satan is not sovereign. Satan does not have his own realm that God can't get at. No, God made Satan the way he was on purpose. There are, however, places in Scripture, 2 passages, in fact, in Ezekiel 28 and Isaiah 14, that speak of 2 human beings. But Christian expositors who are trying and who want desperately to relieve God of responsibility for creating Satan the way he was and the way he is, and God made Satan evil on purpose because of the necessity of an antagonist against which God's heroes can rise and shine. Well, Christian expositors don't like that. They can't swallow it because they think evil is eternal. They believe in eternal torment, and so they can't make God responsible for it, so they're looking for a scapegoat. We need desperately to find a passage in Scripture that says Satan actually started good, that God had nothing but good intentions for Satan, but Satan was stubborn, contrary, pain in the ass, and rebelled. Well, they found what they think are those places in Ezekiel 28 and Isaiah 14. Notwithstanding the fact that Ezekiel 28 is talking about an historical personage called the Prince of Tyrus, and Isaiah chapter 14 speaks of the king of Babylon. Never mind that. These are secret names for Satan, don't you know? All right, so I left off in verse 13 of Ezekiel 28. And yesterday I talked about stumbling blocks. I talked about how God puts things in this passage. I call them worms on a hook that trap these expositors who rely on their own interpretations, who can't believe plain statements of Scripture elsewhere, that Satan was a sinner and a man-killer from the beginning, that God made him purposely the way he was, God created evil. Plain verses that can't be misinterpreted. They cannot be believed, but they can't be misinterpreted. So the theologians go to passages that seem a little obscure, and they want to make these into something they're not. And God sets a trap for them by putting little tidbits in there that make it easy to twist. Yesterday I told you a couple of those things. God put the word perfect in here, that the king of Tyrus was perfect. I explained that yesterday, that the king of Tyrus, or the prince of Tyrus, was created. I went into that yesterday and long, but listen to this. The next potential stumbling block occurs in verse 13. Here it is said, and if they're reading the King James Version, I could see where they get tripped up. Quote, "Thou hast been in Eden, the garden of God." Thou hast been in Eden? Like the Garden of Eden where Adam and Eve were? Anybody have any record of the Prince of Tyrus ever traveling back in time to the Garden of Eden? No? Okay, well, this must mean Satan. That is proof that it means Satan. Is it? Well, let's look more carefully at this word. Because there seems to be a difficulty until we realize that the Hebrew word Odin, O-D-N, usually translated as a proper name, Eden, O-D-N, E-D-E-N, it's really a transliteration. It needn't always be translated, that is, transliterated as a proper name. Here's an example. When the French want to talk about a red stick, what do they say? Bâton rouge. Bâton rouge in French means red stick. And with small letters, bâton rouge, small b, small r, a red stick is something a boy might use to play with a frog or to torment his sister with. But when capitalized, ladies and gentlemen, when capitalized, Baton Rouge becomes a city in Louisiana. So what is the etymology of this word? Or even better yet, where does this word come from? Well, the word Odin means delight. That's the literal elements of the word. I found that in Young's Analytical Concordance on page 287. See, I research all these things for myself. So if you simply make this word, wherever it appears in Scripture, if you simply make it what it means, delight, rather than turn it into a proper name, then the problem of the Prince of Tyrus being God's secret name for Satan, or, stranger yet, the Prince of Tyrus actually meeting our progenitors in the Garden of Eden, disappears. Yes, it's an adjustment. You're changing something that's a proper name into its basic element, but the only thing you're changing is whether it's capitalized or not. The word doesn't change. This is way different than what the Christian expositors are doing when they turn Prince of Tyrus into Satan. These are completely different words. All we're doing with this Hebrew word Odin is making the first letter of the same word lowercase instead of uppercase. That's all we're doing. No one should resent me or anyone else taking that liberty, because capital letters and small letters are not part of Scripture. The case of letters. There was no such thing as case in the original languages. Now the Septuagint, which is the Greek translation of the Old Testament, Jesus actually read the Septuagint, Greek translation of the Old Testament. Listen to this. The Septuagint has taken this liberty. It translates, verse 13, thou was in the delight of the paradise of God. Delight, I love that because that's what the word means. That's what Adon means, literally, delight. You know, what the translators in Genesis could have done is instead of saying that Adam and Eve came into the Garden of Eden, they could have come into delight. You could capitalize it. Or the Garden of Delight. Or just plain delight. Welcome to delight. Population 2. That would have been an illegitimate translation. So back to the Septuagint of Ezekiel 28:13. Thou wast in the delight of the paradise of God. Another literal translation, the concordant version of the Old Testament, my favorite, translates this along a similar line this way. In the luxury of the garden of Elohim, you come to be. The luxury of the garden of Elohim. Luxury being their take on delight. All this means, what this boils down to, is that the prince of Tyrus was well situated by God. That's the bottom line here. And this is detailed, as I read before, in verses 3 through 5. Talks about how this guy had it made. Thought he was perfect. At one point, thought he was God or God-like. All because he was well situated. All because he lived in this delightful place. This makes things easy when you translate it this way. And again, it's totally legitimate. The real difficulty, in my opinion, would be the prince of Tyrus actually being in the Garden of Eden. I mean, assuming that God means prince of Tyrus when he says prince of Tyrus, which that's the right way to take things. And who dares to assume he doesn't mean the prince of Tyrus when he says the prince of Tyrus? The Christian expositors assume that. The only alternative we would have is to put the prince of Tyrus actually in the Garden of Eden. That is, if we're going to put a capital O or capital E on Eden and say that this is the place Adam and Eve lived. The prince of Tyrus in Eden? Can you imagine that? I can. I can definitely imagine that. Good day, man. Adam, is it? Welcome to Eden, sir. I believe you'll like it here. I've not seen weather like this in the whole Chaldean Empire. Me? Oh, I'm prince over thousands of people in the village of Tyrus. Oh no, man, don't look for it in your atlas. The founding of Tyrus is still several millennia into the future. Hello, is this your lovely wife? And I'm not actually born yet. These? Oh, why, of course, these are clothes. This is a tweed jacket. These are commonly termed shoes, or Oxfords, if you will. Tell me, have you got the time, sir? I have a watch, but it's stopped. You see, I'm planning a major celestial rebellion at midnight. Then I must return here by dawn and transform myself into a... Well, why should I trouble you with that now? And then, confound my luck, I'm scheduled to address the Mayor's Club in Tyrus. Alas, do commiserate with me, friends, for I have come to be the busiest man, / prince, / spirit being, / devil, / snake, / misunderstood personage in all the Bible. Yes, forgive me for that, but it's either one of three things. Either God can't say what he means, or my absurd act right there suggests the truth that the Prince of Tyrus was actually in the Garden of Eden. Or 3, make the O in Adon small case. You know where I'm going on this one. All right, the Prince of Tyrus was not a cherub. Listen to this. What about verse 14? Reading from the King James Version now, where it said of the Prince of Tyrus, thou art the anointed cherub that covereth. I apologize for the King James language, but I'm going to do this justice in the King James Version. Thou art the anointed cherub that covereth, and I have set thee so. the anointed cherub? How could the prince of Tyrus have been a cherub? Aren't cherubim those fat little winged babies that look so cute on postage stamps? Yeah, they're adorable. They're fat. They have wings. Doesn't this verse prove that Satan used to be an adorable, fat little winged cherub before he became a trim, well-muscled hothead? Yeah. If the prince of Tyrus is being called a cherub, my question is, what did his mother think, the prince of Tyrus' mother, when she first saw his wings? It's like, ooh, what have we got here? Did the school children taunt him? Did his father have a contract with the postmaster general? Son, we're going to get you on some postage stamps. This will be a lucrative opportunity. No, sorry, these questions are ridiculous, but I entertain ridiculous questions. I employ satire to show you the ridiculousness of the common thinking on this. First of all, the post office is not to be relied on for timely Walmart ads, let alone accurately portrayed cherubim. Secondly, I believe the prince of Tyrus was home educated, so the school kids did not make fun of him. And thirdly, you don't want to pinch a cherub's cheeks. Fourthly, if you want to know what a cherub looks like, read the first chapter of Ezekiel. Not very cuddly. I dare someone to put that on a postage stamp. I dare someone to pinch its cheek. So what are cherubim? You see, we're going to get into a sub-study of cherubim here because of this. This is a scriptural topic. I love looking into really the supernatural world, the celestial world, the world that is beyond our sight and our hearing. All the senses we have are not able to pierce that world, and we can only go on the few descriptions we have of that world in the scripture. So we first read of cherubim in Genesis 3:24. Again, why am I doing this? Because the King James calls the prince of Tyrus a cherub. You are the anointed cherub. A cherub is admittedly a spiritual being. A cherub is not a man, could never be a man. So we have conflicting descriptions already in Ezekiel 28. Early in the chapter, the prince of Tyrus is called a man. He's going to be squashed like a man. But now he's called the anointed cherub. So is there a transition happening here? Is there a transition happening where the king of Tyrus, the prince of Tyrus, is going from being a man to an angel, to a supernatural being? Was he actually in the Garden of Eden? Was he perfect? Did he fly directly off the finger of God? That's why we're looking into this. So we have to find out what a cherub is. That would be good, yes? We first read of the cherubim in Genesis 3:24. In Genesis 3:24, God employs two of them to guard the way to the tree of life. And in the Holy of Holies, golden images of cherubim, not the actual article, but the golden images representing cherubim, overshadowed the lid of the Ark of the Covenant. And if you read Ezekiel's vision of the cherubim, which I already suggested, that would be the first chapter of Ezekiel, then you'll find out that, again, they're not cozy, they're not cuddly. In Ezekiel's vision, the duty of the cherubim are to wait on God. They wait on God, and they accomplish his purpose. They're actual beings. So again, they're essentially celestial beings, and though you can't ordinarily see them, Ezekiel was the exception here, they rule over and above humans. Again, they operate on God's behest, and they actually have supervision over human beings. The cherubim participate in God's government, which is implemented by humans on earth. And in this capacity, they promote good and judge evil. And because earthly matters are generally evil, that's just my perspective, the cherubim generally judge, and this is not a cute activity. If you do happen to see a cherub duck, it's not good. They usually show up for judgment, as I said. So how could the prince of Tyrus, clearly stated in context to be a man, how could he possibly be a cherub? He can't. And this is another translation problem. Where do you see this? If you look at the King James Version, you'll notice that the word art, as in thou art the anointed cherub. I looked this up. I know we're getting wonky here, but you love it. Thou art the anointed cherub. The word art, which is King James language for are, is in light-face type. That means it wasn't in the original Hebrew. So at least the KJV translators are honest here. The light-face type, again, means that the word is not in the original Hebrew text. It was put there, artificially put there, to satisfy what they believe to be English idiom and to help the passage make sense. And if a passage is correctly translated, then these supplied words do help. And it's always nice if you have a version where the supplied words, that is, words that have no backup in the original language, no support in the original language, no corroboration in the original language. It's nice to know when that's noted, and in good versions, it's noted by light face type. If the passage is mistranslated, however, as is the case here, then these added words can mislead, grossly mislead, and that's exactly what is happening here. So in this case, instead of helping us, the supplied word art suggests the absurd, namely that an historical personage, a man, is a cherub. All right, now, I know many of you didn't like grammar classes in school. I didn't either. I liked creative writing, but I was not interested in the mechanics of a sentence. What do they call that? Diagramming a sentence. Whoever thought of doing that was a sadist. But here you go. The Hebrew word translated thou in the King James Version, as in thou art the anointed cherub, is ath. That's the Hebrew word, A-T-H. This Hebrew word is flexible. I can't help it. It is. It can either be a pronoun, as the KJV translators have made it, or it can indicate the object of a verb. What's a pronoun? Well, it's a word that fills in for a noun. Example of pronouns are you, he, she, it, they. So if you're talking about the king, or the prince, I keep calling him king, the prince of Tyrus, and you say he instead of prince of Tyrus, you're employing a pronoun. He would be the pronoun. But it can also, as I say, indicate the object of a verb. Yes, I know, I hear a collective groan from disgruntled grammarians, disgruntled students, the victims of grammarians. The object of a verb is the thing that a verb acts upon. For instance, in the sentence, Ryan ate the mulberry bush. Mulberry bush is the object of the verb ate. Ryan ate what? He ate the object of the verb, of course, which is mulberry bush. So in Ezekiel 28:14, ath can't be a pronoun. That is, you can't put he for it, or you. It can't. Why? Because of this. It disagrees in gender with both king and cherub. See, we don't have this concern in English. But in most complicated languages requiring at least 4 years of study to master or to forget, each noun is either masculine, feminine, or neuter in gender. This is the thing with nouns. They're either masculine, feminine, or neuter in gender. I don't understand it either. I don't like it, but it's just the way it is. So in this case, king and cherub are both masculine in the Hebrew. There is also a rule stating that whenever a pronoun is substituted for a noun, as in thou being substituted for king and cherub, the pronoun, that is the word being used in place of the noun you, he, she, it, they, must agree in gender with the noun it's filling in for, you see. So if ath was a pronoun doing duty for king and cherub, as the KJV has it, then ath would have to be masculine. That pronoun would have to be masculine. Why? Because both king and cherub are masculine.
But guess what? The surprising thing here is that at is not masculine. It's feminine, just like me.
Yeah, I know. This was a hell of a shock to me, too. I know what you're feeling right now. I had to drink more almond milk to recover from this when I first saw it. But this proves that since hath is not a pronoun, it's the other thing. And the only other thing it can be is the object of a verb. So what, you're asking? I can't blame you for that. So what? Well, for one thing, we can get rid of that supplied word art. We just did that. And since thou shouldn't even appear in the text, because remember, hath is a pointer here, not a pronoun, then the KJV translators supplied art needlessly. And we already know that they did that. But they thought they had to do it because they thought hath was a pronoun. Duh. It's not a pronoun. It doesn't agree in gender with the nouns it's being substituted for. So these things being so, and they are so, these are objective matters. The 4 questions you're dying to ask now are this, and I've written these down to try to remember them. Here's the 4 questions you're dying to ask. Number 1, what is the object of the verb hath pointing to? Great question. 2, since art isn't the verb of the sentence, what is? Obvious question. 3, who or what is the object of the sentence? Right. And 4, will you reach a conclusion in our lifetime? Well, I really don't appreciate that last question, but I thought it might come to your mind, so I wrote it down. Sometimes I'm my own worst enemy. Well, I'm going to explain all these things to you. Even if you're not really following me, and this is difficult to grasp, I understand. I really had to struggle to get this stuff. Really struggled. I think it's just comforting for you to know that this is a translating issue. And that we don't have to just throw up our hands and say, well, it's a mystery. We don't know. All we know is there's no way the king of Tyrus, the prince of Tyrus, there's no way he can be Satan. And then somebody can say, well, the King James says this and this and this. And you can come back with this pronoun business, with the pointer, with the object of the verb, with the masculine, feminine, or neuter gender of the noun. Oh, imagine dazzling your friends and family members at a Bible study with these facts. You will be the life of the party and the death of their diabolical doctrines.